It is Friday, November the 24th. Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thanks for joining us for our weekend weather update and of course the outlook for next week. And we've got a bit of rain around, but also next week a very powerful high pressure zone is going to control the weather across New Zealand and Australia, and it's going to allow for some rain and some wind, but also large dry areas for the New Zealand area. Let's have a look on the animated wind map for later on Friday. This shows temperatures. So look at New Zealand in the green, and Australia mostly in the red and orange. So it's pretty obvious which place is hotter than the other. So we've got this cooler southerly blowing around. The whole country's really got it by the end of today. And then this high pressure zone starts to drift in to the lower South Island. And that's the reason why we've got a frost risk overnight tonight. So when you wake up on Saturday morning, the last Saturday of November, there could be a frost around in some places, especially through the interior of the South Island, around the Southern Alps, for example. And over here in Australia, yes, this is a slightly cooler change in the east. Not so much the wind direction, it's still a northerly, it's still going to be fairly warm, but not quite as hot with the thick clouds and some of those heavy downpours and thunderstorms. So speaking of rain, let's kick off with the 3-day rainfall map for New Zealand, and most of that wet weather over in Northern Hawke's Bay and Gisborne area. There could be up to 100 millimetres, and Wairoa there in Northern Hawke's Bay is most at risk for the heaviest falls. So from Wairoa, Frasertown, and then further inland towards Lake Waikaremoana, that is the area that's most likely to see 100, even 125 millimetres over the next few days. So that could lead to a few slips and streams rising. The good news is it's spread over a few days. It's not all falling in 24 hours, but this is the area here, Northern Hawke's Bay up to about Gisborne, most at risk from the heavy rain. Elsewhere, not so much. Over in Australia, more of the thunderstorms and heavy showers continuing in the north and the east. Rainfall rates around about 20 to 40 millimetres for those heavy showers. Might go a little bit higher if you're lucky or unlucky, depending on how much you've already had. And temperatures in New Zealand, now this is the maximum departure from normal for Friday and for Saturday. So in other words, how much warmer or cooler is it compared to usual? Here is Friday. So the top of the country actually resets to normal after being several degrees above average. Now places like Auckland and Waikato and Whangarei are all pretty much bang on where they should be for this time of the year. But look how much cooler than average it is all the way along the eastern side from Napier down to about Invercargill. Now tomorrow, what a change, at least for the lower South Island. You wake up with that frost risk, and then places like Queenstown are going to be several degrees warmer than they should be at this time of the year. But the east, Christchurch to Wairoa and Gisborne, those places all cooler than average. But again, Waikato, or at least Hamilton and Auckland and New Plymouth, all of those places, normal temperatures for you on Saturday. So here is the Saturday setup. We've got this low pressure zone kind of briefly forms around the top of the country, left over from that cold front that we've got today, moving northwards. So there'll be a little bit of rain here, mostly around East Cape. That's the rain we just talked about. And then as we go through the weekend, the low kind of moves around like this and the rain slides down the eastern side of the North Island. A windier southeasterly means that it won't be frosty in the north, but it could be frosty in the south. Moving through to Sunday, and another cool morning around the South Island. Maybe not quite as cold as it was on Saturday morning, so the frost risk should be reduced a wee bit. High pressure mostly in control, and the wet weather here remains with more of a southeasterly. That's again why Wairoa is sort of more exposed to that heavier rain, more so than say Napier and Hastings are. And then over in Australia, more thunderstorms once again forming, especially later into the day. And it's a cold day in Hobart. I think your high is only around about 14 degrees. Let's move through to Monday, and high pressure to the north here, a weak low to the south, and a much stronger high down here. I think I said yesterday, the reason why we're seeing the thunderstorms in Australia and the reason why we're seeing low pressure zones in the New Zealand area is because this high pressure belt has dropped a long way south. This should be further up over New South Wales and Victoria. When it's placed there, it brings very dry weather to Australia, and it tends to bring more westerlies into New Zealand. We're going to notice that more next week, but I just want to explain that. That's the reason really why we're not getting the more traditional El Nino pattern at the moment. But that could easily change, because as we go into next week, once this low kind of moves through, this powerful high starts to creep closer in, and that will change the weather pattern, at least in the New Zealand area, and it should start to ease some of these heavy showers that we're seeing around parts of Australia, although really that weather pattern for Australia does look like it's going to remain for just a little bit longer yet, because next week there's another area of low pressure that starts to deepen. That's going to bring rain more likely into the ACT and Victoria. And then over on the New Zealand side, this starts to look a little bit more like the classic setup that we get at this time of the year and with El Nino. That's where you get high pressure out to the west and a southwesterly showers around the North Island. That's mostly showers you see on that map. So our final map for Thursday next week, again, just sums up what I was talking about. If this high pressure zone was up here, that would be the more classic setup. So it's not a huge amount further south, but it's enough further south to allow this low pressure zone to linger around Australia. But most of the wet weather moves actually off from the continent on Thursday. And over here in New Zealand, a few afternoon showers will be forming. Otherwise, generally dry next week, or becoming drier as we go through next week, thanks to this high pressure zone. So there we go. That's how we are kicking off next week. That is all from me for today, though. I'll be back again on Monday with our next update as we come to the end of November. And of course, next Friday, 1 week from now, the 1st of December, which is the first day of summer on the meteorological calendar. If you go with the astronomical calendar, you've got to wait through till the summer solstice, which is basically another month away from now. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.